Hey, friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather, and I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009 with my show, making it the original Tudor History Podcast. This channel is where I put all of my episodes from all of my shows, as well as tons and tons of extra content like this video right here. So today we are going to talk about some of the possessions, the items that Henry VIII had. So when Henry died, they did a full inventory of all of his possessions. I actually did an episode, gosh, maybe 5 years ago on Henry's inventory. I'll find it and link to it. But we're going to look at some of the most interesting, bizarre items that Henry VIII had in his possessions. Possibly Christmas gifts that were given to him and he never regifted. Maybe things that he liked. I don't know. But before we get started, if you would like to see more Tudor history in your YouTube feed, and I mean, who doesn't, go ahead and hit subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode, a video that I put out. All right. So we're going to start with some of the instruments that Henry had. His 1547 inventory lists more than 20 recorders, 19 viols, 2 clavichords, and 4 sets of bagpipes, including one made of purple velvet with ivory pipework. Henry was a very talented musician. He was a composer, and he absolutely loved music. Most of his collection of instruments was at Westminster Palace. They were maintained by a Flemish-born composer named Philip van der Wilder, who was given the title the Keeper of the King's Instruments. Henry also had this miniature of musicians, keeping with the music theme, musicians with various instruments, a trumpet, a harp, a dulcimer, and this was in Henry's Psalter. Next up, Henry had a codpiece large enough to conceal a weapon. Henry, of course, is famous for these exaggerated, really big codpieces that would show masculinity. The king, of course, had to have the largest codpiece of them all, compensating for anything else. But towards the end of his life, Henry's codpieces had become big enough that he could actually use them as spare pockets. So he could keep his jewels, his family jewels. Maybe that's where the term comes from. I don't know. If you know, let me know. He could keep his jewels in his codpiece. He could even keep small weapons, and he even had them built into his armor so that he could keep his valuables there if he went to war and couldn't carry a bag. Before he got to be the Henry that we know, Henry loved sports. And in 1526, he commissioned a pair of leather football boots. It cost about £90 in today's money. And he was an avid fan of football. So I'm not sure who he would support today. I support Tottenham myself. But it's not because I actually made any kind of intellectual choice. It's just because when I lived in London, my best friend was a Tottenham supporter. So I became a Tottenham supporter by default. Also, here's a fun story. So when I lived in London, I lived in Finsbury Park, right across from the old Arsenal Stadium, Islington Road. So there was a bridge, and the Arsenal Stadium was on the other side of the bridge. And I lived on the Islington Road side of the bridge. And this is before the new Emirates Stadium. So one time my friend and I were going to a Tottenham match, and he came over and I made lunch, I guess, and we had our Tottenham scarves. Like I'd gotten myself a scarf and, we're all dressed up. And there were people going to the Arsenal match. And so I had made lunch and I needed to go out into the backyard and throw something away. And somehow I locked myself out of my house, my flat. And my flatmate wasn't there. So I wasn't sure what we were going to do. There was an open window. We wound up climbing through the open window. But the thing that was just really weird is we were like surrounded by Arsenal supporters while we're wearing our Tottenham stuff, breaking into a house, looked like that was, in Arsenal territory. So it was a little bit sus and people kind of made some comments, but nobody accused us or anything. I just kept saying like, I live here. I just locked myself out and like, excuse the Tottenham stuff. Anyway, I don't know how I got, Henry VIII and football. So Henry loved football and Henry had a pair of leather football boots commissioned especially for him. But then randomly in 1540, he banned football for a while on the grounds that it incited riots. So that's fun. couple of years ago, I did do an episode on football in Tudor England. It was during the World Cup. So I will find that and link to that as well. Something else that Henry loved were animals. And as king, Henry was always being gifted random things. So at one point in 1532, Henry was gifted a polar bear by the Norwegian king Hakon IV, and he kept it at the Tower of London. The Tower of London was also a menagerie. I did an episode on the Tower of Menagerie too, which I will find. See, everything links together in Tudor England, in life too, really. But anyway, so he kept it at the Tower of London. And he kept it on a leash that was long enough that the polar bear could actually go out and swim in the Thames. I don't know how the polar bear felt about this. I'm sure it wasn't ideal. But anyway, Henry had a polar bear. Henry also had a marmoset, which is kind of interesting because Catherine of Aragon also had a marmoset. When Henry died, in the inventory, there were more than 60 dog leashes included in his inventory that were in his wardrobe. And Henry also kept ferrets, hawks, falcons, and lots of other birds, as well as dozens of dogs during his lifetime. Something else that shows the kind of sporty side of Henry is Henry also really enjoyed bowling. And Henry had a bowling alley built at Hampton Court Palace soon after Edward, his son, Edward was born. So one fun thing about bowling in the Tudor period, the bowling alley was about 200 feet long, which is about 3 times the size of a modern 10-pin bowling alley. Bowling was actually quite popular in Tudor England, but then Mary I went and outlawed it because she outlawed bowling alleys, dicing houses, and other unlawful games in 1555. Elizabeth brought it back, though, so it's okay. Are you a good bowler? I'm not a very good bowler at all. I still bowl two-handed, and I just go up and carry it, and I just kind of squat down and roll it and hope for the best, which it's really bad when I do that and I wind up beating people that I'm playing with, because that's kind of embarrassing for them. So, yeah, that's me in bowling. You guys, we're in a funny space today. I've got my coffee, I had my protein shake. We're doing it. So there we have it. Some funny and hilarious items that Henry had in his inventory. Maybe some gift ideas for you if you need some last minute Christmas gifts. A marmoset. I'm sure it would go over well. All right, hey, if you made it to the end of this video and you enjoyed it, I sure would appreciate a press of that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to even more people. And I hope I earned your subscription to my channel where I put out videos like this like almost every day. If you want to keep binging Tudor content, here's that episode on the Tower Menagerie. That's quite fun. And here's an episode that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Thank you so much for being here. Remember, you are deeply and truly loved. I'm so glad I share the planet with you. And don't forget to drink your water. All right, friend, I will talk with you soon.